First, I want to say thank you for everyone who came here. Some people came from another country, different countries, so I really appreciate it. As a kid, I was always encouraged to try everything. From basketball to drama classes, I played football, learned sewing, ran in competitions, climbed trees, rode horses, played guitar, and even went skydiving, which, believe it or not, was my parents' gift for my 12th birthday. Though I'm not sure they would have gone for it a second time. Some of my pursuits may not have been exactly their cup of tea, but my parents always tried to be supportive. Their response was often, "We're not surprised that you surprise us." If you ask them, moving to London to train as an actor was probably inevitable, though I'm sure they would have preferred it if I'd stayed a little closer to home. I grew up in Israel, in what you'd call a typically secular Israeli household. Our holiday observances mostly meant festive dinners. Still, certain Orthodox traditions held on, like the idea that when boys have a bar mitzvah, they're expected to read from the Torah in front of the community. For boys, it wasn't just a celebration, it was a mitzvah, a commandment, a rite of passage into responsibility. When girls celebrate a bat mitzvah, it's usually a big party, but no Torah. And that's just how it was. No one ever said you can't, but no one ever said you could either. It was quietly understood. Traditionally, it was not an option. And to be honest, I'm not sure I would have wanted to do it back then, because who wants to do something they have to do? It wasn't until I started teaching here at Westminster Synagogue, guiding young people, some of them are here, through their own bar and bar mitzvah journeys for the past 7 years, that I began to reflect more deeply on this tradition. I remember sitting in one of our recent classes. A few students were absent that day, and I looked around the table and I realized that I was surrounded by 12 to 13-year-old girls. Bright, curious, fierce girls debating Jewish texts, asking bold questions, and mastering the art of Snapchat and TikTok all at once. And it suddenly struck me. The room is full of girls. Girls who are taking up space I didn't even know I was allowed to want at their age. And while I've been equally moved by the boys I've taught, their insights, their openness, their humor, something about seeing these girls so confidently owning their voices and their Judaism stirred something in me. It made me realize maybe it's not too late to take up that space too. And then I read this week's portion, Bamidbar, which means in the desert, and it hit me again. We begin with a census, counting the people, organizing them by their ancestral tribes, and giving them a mission, a purpose, something to be held accountable for. But the women are not mentioned. They are missing from the count, both from the general census and from the exclusive record of the tribe of Levi. In Jewish tradition, every single letter in the Torah is considered sacred. If even one letter is missing, the entire scroll is deemed invalid. Inspired by Jewish mystical thought, every Jew is likened to a letter in the Torah, unique, essential, and irreplaceable. Without even one, the story is incomplete. I often encourage my students, you can ask them, to seek a deeper meaning in the text, to find insight, relevance, and personal connection. Acting has taught me to step into someone else's shoes, to wrestle with their contradiction, to speak their truth as if it were my own. And here I am, standing in conversation with this ancient text, struggling. Even as someone raised by parents who taught me to always see the glass as half full, I find myself like a rebellious teen, arms crossed, sitting with the discomfort this portion brings. This silence, this feeling of being left out of the count, is not an ancient thing of the past. It echoes through history into our present moment. We face it in our institutions, our workplaces, and in our communities. On October 7th, we witnessed some of the most horrific acts that swept the ground out from under our feet. And yet, the suffering of Israeli women, along with the children, the elderly, both able and disabled men, and the brutal violence they endured, has too often been met with denial, doubt, or silence by the international community. Once again, women's voices were pushed aside. Once again, the pain of women was considered inconvenient, too political, and too complex to hold with compassion. While I'm looking to share some positive insights, I can't help but to confront the harder truth, the exclusion, the silence, and the sense of being overlooked. I believe that wrestling with the text, even when it's uncomfortable, isn't an act of rebellion against the Torah. On the contrary, it's an act of devotion, of deep engagement, and of love. Because it means that we care. It means that we are still in the conversation. I don't stand here to reject the tradition, but to be part of its evolution, to take the words of our ancestors and bring them into conversation with the present, to hold the tension between what was and what can be. Because I believe our texts are alive, meant to be questioned, wrestled with, and ultimately transformed into something that speaks to who we are today. As a Jewish Israeli woman, I choose not to be silent. I choose to say, we see you. We hear you. Your pain matters. Your story matters. And it is our responsibility. Sorry. It is our collective responsibility to hold space for the voices that have been ignored. And if this portion once overlooked women, then perhaps reading it now as a woman, as a teacher, as an individual reclaiming her place, is a way of writing us back in. Standing here today feels like a second coming of age, a chance to step forward as an adult while still holding on to the spirit of the 12-year-old I once was. If I could speak to that younger version of myself now, I wouldn't give her advice. I'd thank her for daring to imagine a life that looked a little different. And still, if someone had told me back then that I'd be standing here at 31, I probably would have laughed, just like some of my friends who thought it was unheard of. But life has a way of unfolding in unexpected, beautiful ways. And this moment right here, right now, is one of them. And so this ceremony of becoming a daughter of the commandments is more than just a ritual or a title. It's a declaration, a choice to step into tradition, into responsibility, into voice. It's a way of saying, I belong to this story too. The Torah teaches that every person matters, that we are all created B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. It also reminds us again and again to remember what it feels like to be a stranger. I stand here today because others before me paved the way, and I hope to do the same for those who follow. And as I honor those who came before me, I want to speak up for those who are still waiting to be counted and to come home. As of today, there are still 58 souls being held in hostage in unfathomable, torturous conditions. We remember them today. We carry their names and pray for their immediate return. No one should be left behind. My heart aches for the people in Israel, in Gaza, and beyond, whose lives have been shattered by violence. For the children growing up in fear, the families torn apart, and the voices silenced by conflict. Jewish tradition teaches us to hold complexity, to carry grief and compassion at the same time, even when it hurts, to speak out for our own and to extend that care outward, to recognize that pain does not compete, that every human being is worthy of dignity, of protection, and of peace. While today's reading led me to reflect mainly on women in our tradition, I'd like to dedicate this moment to all those who felt excluded. There are countless others in every corner of the world, still waiting to be seen, to be heard, and to be counted. May we hold space for their inclusion. And so it's a commitment to spiritual practice, to community, to bringing people around the table, and to one of the highest values in Judaism, tikkun olam, repairing the world. To see each person, appreciate them for who they are, and make them count. Shabbat shalom.